Welcome to Footy Talks. Great to have you with us. Luke, Stephen and KJ with you as always. We were to have Liam Fraser join us on the show, but he's not going to be able to make it today. TFC postponing all media availability today. It's something that New York City and New York Red Bulls have done as well today, and I believe DC United. In light of what happened in Major League Soccer and the NBA last night, with those games being postponed, as players decided to take a stance. It's something that Major League Soccer has led the way on ever since what happened with George Floyd back in the spring. And KJ, Stephen, we saw that incredibly powerful statement made at the start of the MLS's back tournament with the players standing on the pitch for that length of time just before the game started. Players from all of the teams uniting in that really powerful statement. We've seen Thierry Henry kneel for the first 8 minutes 46 of the Montreal Impact game. Major League Soccer has been at the forefront of this. Last night when we heard that these games were being postponed, I was watching on TSN2 what was supposed to be the start of the Atlanta and Inter Miami game. And for a while, they weren't sure what was happening. The players were talking to each other. They came out. They had a photograph together to show they were united. The referees were in the middle of that as well. And as he signed off, Kev Egan, who's a really good friend of ours, who's a great broadcaster, he just said, "Tonight, I am so proud of Major League Soccer." And I think all of us would have those sentiments as we go into this show today. Proud of what these players have stood for over the last 24 hours, over the last few months. Disappointed, and that's not a strong enough word, in the fact they have to still do this, KJ.
Yeah, it is obviously with a heavy heart that, we speak today because, I can't speak for you two, but not knowing you two very well, I'm sure your emotions are much similar to mine, and there's a lot of different emotions and, sometimes we have to try and express them with verbally with the words that, and I can only say the same and echo some of your thoughts, Luke, in terms of how proud I am, not just of Major League Soccer, but of the athletes last night in a mixture of sports, led once again by, has to be said, the progressive nature of the NBA, again at the forefront of all this, and what a wonderful league that is to stand up for what is right, and to continue to give other people strength that I think Major League Soccer would admit, and many of those players would admit, that maybe they didn't have the strength to try and go through with what they had done if it wasn't for the Milwaukee Bucks and the National Basketball Association. And as you alluded to, there's been a lot of statements, there's been a lot of shirts worn. Those statements need to lead to actions to make a stand. And, the statements have been good that we've got to this point, but it was time to make a unified statement by not taking the pitch, not taking the court, and respect their wishes and thoughts, and a time to listen hard and with a very heavy heart and tears in my eyes, watching and listening to these people with the pain that they have to go through to get to this level. And whatever is next is next. I would say that short-term reactions without thinking long-term like this are fine. There's a lot of people asking, what is the long-term plan? What is the long haul? It's okay to not necessarily know that right now. These things are important to take a stand and to react, to believe in what you do right, Stephen. And I think the final thing I would say initially is that Major League Soccer, NBA, Major League Baseball, it doesn't matter what your sport that you follow, you have to, I think at some point, want that sport to stand up for what you believe is right, your morals and values of what you think is right as a human being. And if they don't do that, then sometimes I think questions will be asked, and we might get into some of that today where some people haven't done the right thing. But I think you need those leagues that we all like or what you follow to do the right thing, to mirror what you think you should be doing in life. And if they don't do that, then you have to make a decision otherwise, to maybe not follow that league for certain reasons.
Yeah, I completely agree with a lot of things that you said, KJ. A difficult period in general, but a really, really difficult 24 hours for me. I feel very, very emotional about some of the things I've watched, some of the things that I've read, things that I don't know if the word's ignorant, but, didn't realise had such an effect on people that I respect, that I admire within my sport, within other sports. I see guys like Chris Webber, Robert Horry, Doc Rivers chatting about sitting their own kids down at 13 and 14 years old, similar age to my kids, and I know you guys are a little bit younger, but I just can't even imagine that. I can't even contemplate and sitting my boy down and telling him to be careful if the police stop him in his car when he's 16, 17, or, you know, if he's out late at night. And I just can't imagine that, because I'm lucky. I'm a white man. I'm a privileged white man. And so when I watch these fellas, like I said, that I respect, and see the way that they speak about this, and the bravery that the Bucks showed to not take that court, the bravery, guys, like, we are programmed as athletes to just get on with it. You know, you're going through a divorce, just get on with it. You've got alcohol problems, get on with it. You're a gambling addict, just get on with it. Put it to the side, brush it to the back of your mind, and go and play. That's how we're taught from a very early age. And so the bravery to say, no, we ain't getting on with this. This is far too serious. This is bigger than sport. This is bigger than money. This is bigger than anything right now. We must show people how to lead. We, the athletes, are going to show the politicians, the decision makers, how to lead. Isn't that incredible? That it's athletes that are leading the way. Now, who's going to step up? Who's going to step up from government here in Canada, in the UK, anywhere, in the US? We know what a shambles that place is with the leadership that's there. This is accumulation and lack of leadership from people in distinguished positions who are just disgusting. They're just disgusting people. I'm sorry. Step up. Do something about it. Follow these athletes, the ones that can actually help create change. It's going to take some time, guys. I know it's not going to be 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, but it's started and we can't go back. We've got to follow these people. We've got to support them. We've got to do everything we can from our small, medium or large platforms to make a difference here. And if it means not playing games for a weekend, a year, I don't care what it takes. The time is now for all of us to do something about it. And I'm glad we've got this platform. I know we all think alike because we're great friends and we talk out with when we're on air, and we all think the same way. And I think that this is a great time to do something about it and stand for something more than just your sport or your privileged position.
Very aware that the three of us were not involved in any of this in terms of the decisions that were being taken yesterday, what Major League Soccer's players had to go through, the NBA players. So I wanted to make sure that we just heard their side of the story in terms of what was going through their mind last night. Mark-Anthony Kaye is someone you know, KJ, very well, having spoken to him on a number of occasions. We all know him, but you've had deep conversations with him regarding this situation when you did it with the TSN.ca sit down with Jeremy Abobasi and Richie Larea as well. Producer Kev has the interview Mark-Anthony Kaye did last night. So let's just hear from Mark-Anthony Kaye, the Canadian international, part of LAFC. He was at Rio Tinto last night for that game against Real Salt Lake. Obviously, that was one of the games that was postponed. Kev, if you can just roll Mark-Anthony Kaye, we'll hear from him what he had to say last night.
Yeah, so obviously we're here in Salt Lake right now. We've had discussions earlier within the team about how we wanted to make a stance on showing our solidarity with the NBA teams that have decided to opt out of playing in their playoff games. You know, we realized that it was a great opportunity to, you know, really make some noise about an ongoing situation that no matter how much the media covers it, it never goes away. And it's a real problem. And I think that this is a good opportunity to continue the conversation. And yeah, obviously sports are important to a lot of people, and they look to us to give them the right message. So we're using our power right now, our voices right now, by saying we're not going to play because it's unacceptable what's going on in the world, especially here in the US. It's over and over, same things are happening, and there's no real justice being given to us. So for me as a black player, I'm not okay with knowing that, you know, other black people are just getting killed. Nonetheless, other people in general, you know, we are all humans. Life is very valuable, and it doesn't seem like that's the case when it comes to certain races and ethnicities within this country. So I'm very proud of my teammates. I'm proud of RSL also for making a stance and saying we're not going to play. It's a risky thing to do, but, you know, I think it's a powerful move, and I'm just glad that we're taking the opportunity to do it.
That's Mark Anthony Kay. It would be great at some point to be able to get Mark Anthony Kay on the show if we can line it up in the next few weeks as well. A Canadian kid who has experienced so much, standing up there, having that opportunity, Steven, you've captained clubs, you've been in a locker room. He's not one of the most experienced players in that locker room, but he has a voice. And for the last months, he has been using that voice in a very strong way. So impressive listening to him speak like that last night in the midst of what presumably was chaos in terms of everything that the MLS players and the other the athletes were going through as these games were getting cancelled and talks were taking place.
Yeah, great leadership from Mark. I think that has to be said. The full day you could see from his tweets and the way that he was standing up to this was very impressive. And I'm really proud of him because, Mark's a guy that, as you guys know, I've spent time with the Canadian national team recently, but he came into my dressing room. I was the captain of the team at Toronto FC when Mark became, a professional when he first started training with us. So to see the young man that he's becoming, the way that he's willing to, say enough is enough, go against the norm and speak up and be proud and vocal about that, I think makes me very proud. I think he's a lad that will speak his mind, and I think everyone that is in that position. I heard, for example, in the same game, I had Neda Manoa, who had obviously played in England with Manchester City and has been about a bit, who spoke tremendously well, a little bit different from Mark, different personality, but really eloquent in the way that he passed over his message and the way that these guys, whether you were wearing the shirt of Salt Lake or LAFC or anybody else, got together and mobilised so quickly, KJ, as a group, makes me very proud as an ex-player in soccer, in MLS. The way they did that was so impressive, wasn't it?
It really is, and if there's a few positives to come out of this, is that, the young people in this world, and we're all relatively young, but I understand that the next generation behind us, that I really feel very powerfully strong about this, that I think the world is in good hands. And I think that what Major League Soccer is showing right now, that these tremendous young men, I know that other leagues have done the same, but these tremendous young athletes are standing up for what's right, to bring change and shine a light on what's wrong, and not to be afraid of that, and not to stand behind leagues or rich white owners and fear what they have to say and toe a company line. Instead, it's about what they believe is right, and to use their platform to say what's right and to do what's right, and not play a game when the league had initially put out a request saying they stand with them, but not saying the games have cancelled. And the players really, for what we're led to believe, really igniting that push for making sure that they weren't playing the games last night. And the importance of hearing from Mark Anthony Kay and Neda Manoa is vital. And I've been spoken with Mark a few times. Mark is a very gifted football player, but he's also very gifted in terms of how he can eloquently put his words out there. There are black athletes and black players in MLS that I've spoke to that feel very similar to Mark, but feel very vulnerable in front of a microphone and are not quite sure how to express themselves in that way. And that's okay. Not everybody is gifted that way, but it is important that those that are express those words so they can stand for those people and express the feeling of everybody. And that is why it is important that the Black, Lives Change matter, the whole thing there, the Coalition for Change, that they have a voice, that they can lean on these people that can express what they need to express going forward. And I was very proud of Mark, very proud of the players to really push this movement forward.
And I think it also speaks to the unity of Major League Soccer's players and the MLSPA right now, Stevie. Obviously, they've been through an awful lot in terms of CBA negotiations, all that stuff that was going on around whether the bubble would take place or not. And when we talk to players from teams across the league, they were talking now about how more than ever, these players are united as a group. And that wasn't always the case, Stephen. And maybe from when you were there as part of the union, things have changed a lot in terms of it's not now just different sections of players, but there is a unity and a determination within this group of players, young and old, whatever their backgrounds, that they are going to use their voice and use their platform to change, and not only to change things within the league that they want to change, but to try and influence or impact what they can outside the game as well. And that just shows you how far this league and this group of players has come in even the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it's the sort of mobilisation of the group, the coalition that KJ mentioned, and the discussions between teams and squads now that I am so proud of, I guess, Luke, because I think back to 2015 in the CBA, and of course we never had any of this Black Lives Matter stuff, and that it wasn't rearing its ugly head at that time. But even just to get to an agreement on a collective bargaining agreement then was really difficult between the teams. I was a representative for Toronto FC, and eventually we got down to DC to kind of get into the last few hours of the agreement, and there was a lot of kind of battles on different fronts from different teams, and I think that 5 years later in 2020 we're at such a stage where, you know, thanks to Justin Morrow, Jeremy Mbobisi, Richie Laryea, Mark Anthony Kay, Neda Manoa, we can go on and on. These guys are mobilising as a group. They're backed by Michael Bradleys and influential people. It doesn't matter what colour of skin you are, where you come from, where you played, what your history is. These guys are a group now. You know, the MLSP are right behind them. They're forcing things with their owners. They're forcing things with their league in terms of what's going to happen. They're saying, we make this league, we play in this league, we are going to dictate certain things that are acceptable for us and not acceptable for us, KJ. And I think that's remarkable. I really do. And the reason that, you know, I bring up 15 is that this has happened in 5 years, you know. Yeah. There's the growth of this league in terms of on the field that we always go on about, and how successful MLS is becoming. And we talk about salary caps and players coming and the football getting better. But the growth of the league is also having personalities and people who are willing to say enough is enough. And that's what I am most proud about 5 years later for the CBA that I was involved in this year, 2020.
Completely agree.
And when you say enough is enough, there are still some people, unfortunately, who don't think that. And it just goes to show the uphill struggle that there is when you see the comments today from the Real Salt Lake owner, Deloy Hansen, on a local radio station, saying on the game not happening last night, he said, the disrespect was profound to me personally. And he went on to say it's taken a lot of wind out of how much he wants to invest in the team. A lot of Major League Soccer players have come out and said how disgusting that statement is. Josie Altidore of TFC saying he needs to sell the team then. I'm involved in a group that's ready to purchase it. Time for change. Imagine, Steve, you've been a Real Salt Lake player who took that stand last night and hearing from your owner today like that.
It's disgusting. It's the only word that I can say, Luke. It is despicable, you know, that you've got an owner saying that. And this is what we're up against, guys. Like, it's going to take more than one discussion, 10 discussions. It's going to take thousands, millions of discussions. It's systemic. It's in people from when they were born, that came from their parents, that is going to take longer than any of us can imagine to really create the real change that we need, so that people think differently, so that kids are not corrupted by their parents, by the way their parents thought, by hundreds of years of abuse and slavery and the history that we can all go through. None of us I'm not sitting here pretending that I'm a historian, guys, that I know all these details. I'm learning along the way. What I do know is that I looked at a player on the personality of the guy and the qualities that he had as a player, and I never saw the colour of his skin. I never cared any way, you know, where he was born, where he came from. I was his captain or his teammate, and I did my best to allow his voice to be heard within my changing room that I controlled. And thankfully that's the way that I was brought up. But millions of us all around the world, certainly here in North America, have not been brought up like that. And we've got owners saying things like that. Let's not accept it. Let's not worry about one little bit about one of us. A Josie Altidore, magnificent from Josie. He's got the personality and the profile to do it. But let's everybody back onto that. Let's get people like that out of the league. Let's make sure that they don't have any say in what goes on within soccer in North America, because it's disgusting. and we're not going to get any change because people coming in the stand who have a similar mindset to him, KJ, will go down the same road as him and think that's okay because the owner of their football club has said it. It's not okay, and it shouldn't be allowed, and none of us should stand for it.
No, it's absolutely deplorable. But it's very, very difficult to educate ignorance. And, this whole thing about this movement, I'm sure, as a privileged white man, I can only speak for what I think, but I'm sure those on the end of it who are suffering on a daily basis would say that their long-term goal is not to make sure that everybody thinks the same way, because it's going to be really, really difficult. But in many ways, that guy, who I'm not even going to mention his name because he's a disgrace, that, I'm almost pleased that he said it, because everything that's going on right now is the reason why they have to happen, because of people like him. And now, get out the league. Okay? Now, Major League Soccer stands for something that you don't need to be involved in anymore. We don't want to talk about you ever again. Okay? So now Don Garber and his ownership group can do whatever it takes to stand up to him and say, goodbye, you don't belong here. You don't have the same morals and values. We're working forward that we believe in what it's right to represent our league, our sport, and our players. So that's the next step. Don't want anything to do with him anymore? Go. It's time to soften hearts and look at the people within the league and what they stand for as people. And if you're not standing for what everybody else believes is the right thing, goodbye. Don't want to talk about you anymore. Disgusting, disgraceful, everything you want to say. No part of the league. Good riddance. That's what I would say.
I would say the only thing we can do is educate and try and help educate ourselves and others around us, because we haven't experienced what a lot of people right now are going through because of our position. Last night, I spent probably from, it was around about 3:30, 4 o'clock when all this was going down, watching what was happening with the NBA, with my 9-year-old son, Sam Mitchell, the former Raptor head coach, talking extremely powerfully about what he had to go through. And my 9-year-old son, incredulous that this is happening, and this has to happen because of the way the world is. But we have to educate our kids. We have to tell them that this is a problem that needs fixing, even if it's something that they obviously have never experienced themselves and cannot understand that people would act to other people in this sort of a way. And like you said, KJ, there's a very powerful younger generation coming through now who are not living in the dark ages and are trying to do whatever they can to pull this world into a better place. And I think that was, for me, why it was so important that those games were off last night, because instead of sitting watching into Miami against Atlanta, we were sitting as a family watching what was being said on these sports television stations about more than sports, about everything else that is going on in the world and why it's so important. And at the end of the night, he came and he'd drawn a poster that just said Black Lives Matter. And that just for me was like, that was one of the big reasons why it was so important, not just for the attention that Major League Soccer players stepped away last night, but to allow people within families to have a discussion. And Kelly Hrudey said the same thing about the NHL, right? When he spoke powerfully about the fact that he would rather be sitting having this discussion with his family than sitting talking about hockey. And that gave us an opportunity as a family to talk about that last night. So that's, from my perspective, one of the things that hits home in terms of why it was important. And it's a very small reason, very small part of what it was all about. But it did do what it was supposed to in terms of stopping people, Stevie, talking about corner kicks, penalties, video assistant referee, and instead fully focused on the conversation of what is most important right now.
Yeah, the discussions in every living room, wasn't it? Wherever you were in the country, because, the millions of people sitting down to watch an NBA playoff game or an MLS match find that there's dead air, and guys like us are trying to give their opinions. Like we said, some of them are absolutely amazing, the bravery, the honesty, the emotion that these fellas showed. But we protect our kids, don't we? Of course, we love our kids more than anything. We do anything for them. And I find myself, you guys know my Robbie, my youngest son, who is quite an anxious kid, and he's always worried about things. And, it's easy to kind of protect him. And last night we were chatting, and he said, "But what's going to happen, Dad? Is there going to be trouble in the streets? Is it going to be here in Toronto?" And normally my response to that, KJ, would be, "No, it'll be fine, son. It'll be somewhere else." And I think that's such an easy thing to say, to protect the people that we love. But last night I said, I don't know, son. Whatever needs to happen is going to happen. And it might be on the streets of Toronto. And I'm not advocating violence on the streets or violent protests or anything like that. I'm just saying what needs to happen needs to happen. And our kids need to understand that we're not going back, we're not going to accept, we're not going to like package this up and talk about something that happened in the crazy year of 2020. We're going to keep going forward with this. We're going to keep pushing and pushing until the decision makers make decisions to help advocate change. And if that means that people need to go in the streets, or that means that my son sleeps a little bit uneasy at night because he's worried about what's going to happen in his city, then so be it. I think we're at that stage, guys. I think we all have to be brutally honest with our kids, even when it brings fear, because there's kids unlike ours that have different skin colour who are scared. They're scared from the people that protect them. Law enforcement, they're worried about going into the streets. They're in neighbourhoods where everyone looks like them and they have no protection. They don't have anybody to look after them. So I think that it's a time that we all should be a little bit fearful and we should push forward, support each other to try and get towards this change.
Yeah, and finally on that point for me is, what I'll say before is that, one thing I wrote one time in a piece, I can't remember what I was writing about right now, was that they always say, never meet your heroes. And my answer to that was always be pick better heroes, And, is like, for me is that, it doesn't matter whether you're 5, 15, 45, you've got a sporting heroes, and these guys, you enjoy what they do and what they stand up for on a court or on a field or on a racetrack. But what we've now allowed ourselves in 2020 to do is to find out a little bit more about these people and what they stand up for by getting on a camera phone or getting on a social media account. And you can learn a little bit more about what they believe in and stand for. And, they're no longer just a poster on a wall of a guy putting a ball in a hoop. They're representing things that you think that should be right in the world. And that's the thing with kids. Kids look at these guys as much as adults do as icons of what they stand for. And this just gives those an opportunity for those kids to look at these players and go, yeah, these guys are the ones I want to be behind. These guys for the rest of my life, I know that when they're performing at their best on the sporting environment, there's so much to enjoy about them and be enthralled by them. But when they're away from that, you look at someone as incredible as LeBron James, how can anybody look at that guy and go, I don't like that guy? You know what I mean? Like everything he does, everything he says, and what he stands for, it's like, yeah, those are the guys that you want have posters on the wall for, because they have a powerful message. And as I said, sports can have a wonderful, wonderful vehicle for everybody of every age to stand up for what's right in the world and try and soften everybody's hearts.
In the next few days, as the MLS regular season continues, enjoyed today's conversation. Some difficult subjects to talk about, but very important that we highlight these things and talk as best we can, KJ, from our perspective about the things that are going on in the world as well, and not just soccer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I appreciate you guys so much, as colleagues, as friends, and thanks for that. And thanks for everybody for listening. And again, just having those conversations is important. And as just to reiterate, if those missed it from the first half an hour, what we talked about, just thank you to everybody for doing what's right, for softening your hearts and having the right morals and values to guide the league forward to do what's right and to be there with people who are hurting, and to listen and learn more.
And for anyone who wants to hear more from your chat, KJ, with Jeremy Abobasi, Mark Anthony Kay, Richie Larea a few weeks back, it's still there, I'm sure, on the TSN YouTube page.
It is, yeah.
A really enlightening conversation. And if you've got the time, I encourage you to try and listen to what these players have to say. We'll be back next week, same time with Footy Talks. For now, though, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.